So Democrats in Illinois refusing help from President Trump as he zeroes in on Chicago after a violent holiday weekend that left dozens hurt and at least 7 dead.
And Mike Tobin is live on the streets of Chicago this morning and joins us now with the latest. Mike.
Good morning, Ainsley. Good morning, guys. So far, the numbers we have show 54 people were shot, 7 fatally. It usually takes a few hours for Chicago police to release the official numbers from the holiday weekend. But you compare those numbers to the 4th of July weekend, in which 44 people were shot, 6 were killed. This is the dynamic that Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker says is not an emergency that warrants the intervention of federal troopers and the National Guard. In fact, Governor Pritzker launched over the weekend the conspiracy theory that Trump is using crime in Chicago to cheat the midterm elections.
Other aims are that he'd like to stop the elections in 2026 or, frankly, take control of those elections. He'll just claim that there's some problem with an election, and then he's got troops on the ground that can take control, if, in fact, he's allowed to do this.
Also over the weekend, Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson led groups chanting no federal troops in Chicago. And in a move critics dismiss as clearly political, Chicago's mayor signed an executive order banning law enforcement from wearing face masks. And he said that Chicago police will not play a supporting role to their federal counterparts.
We're going to defend our democracy in the city of Chicago. We're going to protect the humanity of every single person in the city of Chicago. No troops in Chicago. No troops in Chicago.
Now, Willie Wilson, a Chicago businessman and one-time mayoral candidate, says the mayor, the governor, and the Democrat Party have failed the people in Chicago who live with the violence.
I support President Trump on this one. There's a lot of things I do not agree with what he might have done or going to do. But on this one here, crime, I support him 1,000%.
And as we reported last week, Great Lakes Naval Base just north of Chicago is preparing to house some federal personnel, as the only real promise we have of federal intervention comes from DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, as she is promising a ramped-up immigration crackdown. Guys, back to you.
All right, Mike Tobin, live in the streets of Chicago. Mike, thank you.
The man he interviewed, Griff, sorry, you were about to talk. The man he interviewed, Willie, he went on to say, he said the mayor and the governor have a lot of security around them, but what about the security around the people?
Well, that's exactly right. Like, I would love to see Mayor Johnson or Governor Pritzker walk one weekend by themselves with no security through the south side of Chicago, just by himself. And not only would he realize that despite what any crime stats show, people don't feel safe because you're seeing more than 40 shot, 7 dead. And Mike Tobin was talking about back on 4th of July, 44 shot, 6 dead. It just, the reality on the street defies the stats and these politicians saying don't come in. To say no troops on our streets is essentially saying, Ainsley, just leave our crime alone. We like our crime just the way it is. We don't want your help to come in and try and stop it. And that's why when we played that montage of these Chicago residents, they want help, because who doesn't want safety? Listen here.
It's just gone from bad to worse to disaster.
No one really feels safe. It's impossible to feel safe in a city like this, especially with the leadership we have.
These kids are carrying guns like around the ages of 8 years old, and they're killing other 8-year-old kids with guns. It's insane.
My opinion, not enough police officers. The police officers' hands are tied.
So the police is really unappreciative offhand under Brandon Johnson, Lori Lightfoot, J.B. Pritzker. Those are 3 are the reason why nobody want to be a police.
Their policies when it comes to crime is not working at all.
I think the biggest piece of the pie has to be more police officers, more protection. That's what the people want.
They are denying the obvious in Chicago. And Chicago is just the latest example of what's happening in every progressive city. Death, poverty, destruction. I remember when I was in Chicago for an interview one time, and one of the guys that was on our security detail was a local cop for the Chicago Police Department. He left for a carjacking because it was in the area. The cops arrived to the scene, and they realized, well, the guy that was just carjacked didn't own his car either. You got 2 carjackers carjacking each other. I had an interview with a family that daughter was murdered. 8 years old in the middle of her front yard, just playing with her friends. They were so aggrieved that when they had to put her back together, that they had to put a tie over her head just so they couldn't see a scar and they could have a proper burial. I mean, I can give you stories for days, and I would call every single local politician, the mayors, the DAs, and ask them, can you give us an interview? Can you meet with the family, tell them what you're going to do to stop this? None of them would ever agree to do an interview with Fox and Friends, or when I worked on Sean's show, or when I had my show on the weekend. It was years and years of the same thing. So now you got a president that advocated and said, look, I'm going to go and advocate for the forgotten men and women. You know what? That means these liberal cities as well. And now they want to resist finally a glimmer of hope. We saw what happened with D.C. They've already turned that problem around. Yes, they got some ways to go, but now you have the National Guard, the feds there, and the criminals are on the run for once.
Well, the Democratic Party is failing the people who live in these communities. And we just interviewed Dr. Amen, and he said, get your children moving. That helps them with their mental health, because we're seeing so many kids on medicines. He said, get them moving, get them outside, let them run around. Well, you can't if you live in the south side of Chicago.
No.
That little girl was playing in her front yard, and she was shot and killed.
I interviewed one kid. He's 13 years old, and him and his cousin are feuding. I go, how? This is your cousin. Your dads are brothers. He goes, well, my cousin lives on the other side of Chicago. That means that we can't hang together because the gangs right here run this block and the gangs run this other. You're robbing kids of a future.
I know, of a childhood,
It shouldn't be that way.
It's a great point that you're raising, Lawrence, because in D.C. specifically, and it's similar in Chicago, you have a mix of major gang affiliations like MS-13 or Tren de Aragua, but then you've also got these crews that are block by block, and some specifically do more carjackings. Others will set up an open-air drug market. And so the crackdown is really given President Trump with the Guard deployment a way to sort of hit a reset button, right? So if you park a Humvee with Guard guys in front of a store that for years people have walked in and just looted and walked out with stuff, which is why you got to get your toothpaste behind a locked glass case. Do you think those criminals are going to march past a Humvee and Guard troops and rob it? No, they're not.
No.
So what's that do? It resets the clock and allows the police departments to finally take the reins. We'll, you know, how long that takes and how it unfolds, we'll see.
We saw it in D.C. Policing works, cleaned up the streets.
I'm Steve Doocy. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.